What's up guys, Lifting here. Make yourself comfortable because today we are going to discuss the current state of LLD PvPing in Path of Exile. And in order to give you guys the best answers and insight about this, I have invited one of the absolute most knowledgeable and skilled PvPers. His name is Greendude. And Greendude, why don't you introduce yourself to the viewers?
Hey man, first of all, thanks for having me. It's really good to do these to help promote PvP, so I'm glad you're doing this. And so a little bit about me. I've been playing PoE for, I don't know, 3 years or whatever it is now,
Hmm?
since closed beta. And yeah, I used to play Diablo 2, so it was a easy switch there. And yeah, I try to touch upon everything in PvP, in PoE rather. And PvP was obviously something I had to try, and I just got heavily involved with it when I realized there is no scene and we have to make a scene ourselves. And thanks to the website and everything I've been working on, we've been able to push it into mainstream.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Could you tell us a bit about your website, PoE Arena, as well?
Yeah, so PoE Arena, as I was saying, just started as a sort of a way to organize tournaments, display ladders, and get everyone talking about PvP in one dedicated area. Because at the time we were just using the PvP feedback section on the main forums, which didn't seem appropriate.
Hmm.
So that's how it kind of came to be, and fortunately it grew, and we were able to actually do some live streams for the tournaments, and have a good place for people to find new information about PvP if they're just getting started. And yeah, that's how it came to be, and it's really looking good now.
Oh yeah, I can definitely recommend to you guys out there if you're interested in becoming more knowledgeable about PvP or searching for guides and that kind of stuff. I would suggest you go to poearena.com. There's a lot of very knowledgeable people in there's lots of good sources of information. This is where I go when I seek out some PvP related questions. And I'm gonna leave a link to the website in the description below the video. So go there and check out the website. So I'm going to tell you guys here briefly what we're going to discuss or what I want to talk to Greendude about. And in this podcast, we're going to touch upon Greendude's visit to the GGG headquarters, first of all, because I'm pretty excited to hear about that. And I also want to know what Greendude himself is currently spending his time on in PoE. Additionally, we're going to talk about the current meta of PvP in Path of Exile, and I want to hear Greendude's thoughts on patch 1.3 as a PvP patch, or maybe just in a whole sense as well. And besides that, I'm gonna ask Greendude about some of the most popular builds, balance, events, and so on, and with the regard to PvP. So let's head straight into it. And Greendude, tell us about your adventure to New Zealand. How was it, and why did you go? What was the mission?
All right, so I had Chris on Skype because we were doing the PoE Arena tournaments, and he was kind
Hmm.
enough to give us some MTX points to give to winners.
Hmm.
So I already had him there, and we had talked before, and I guess just one day he realized, you know what, we have a bit of a time slot where we're going to be finishing up a big update, and we're going to have a bit of downtime before we really want to focus on Act 4.
Hmm.
And we'd like to finally fit that slot to be PvP. And so he tells me this, and he says, "Look, we when it comes to PvP, we're starting from zero. We're not knowledgeable about it, and we need someone knowledgeable to just be around the office so that as we talk about stuff, as we do things, we
Hmm.
have a direct input. Excuse me, and yeah, and they're like, "Do you want to come over to New Zealand?" And of course, uh, I couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went there. It was awesome. Jonathan GGG hosted me at his place. I got to meet everybody. I got to spend hours and hours with Chris of just talking, and it was fantastic. And at the office, we got to play, we got to work, design some stuff, do a lot of balance changes. It was really awesome.
It sounds like a small dream coming true. That sounds so cool, man. VIP.
Yeah.
So, who did you talk to mostly over there? Who was the persons mostly responsible for the development of PvP?
So the people I hung out the most with was definitely Nick and Carl.
Mm,
Nick is known for being the guy who handles supporter uniques.
mm,
And Carl's obviously been there since the very beginning. Everyone knows him.
yeah.
And so Carl's kind of like a production guy. He gets things ready and patched, and oversees it. And yeah, Nick was doing a lot of uniques for supporters, but in that time he did a lot of uniques for LLD and trying
Mm,
to maybe change the meta using uniques and stuff. So he had a lot of involvement. And together we also got a lot of balance changes. So it was a little bit, I think, out of their usual work
yeah.
load, but they did a really good job. And when we had important discussions, even Chris got involved. We had the programmers like Jonathan get involved. Daniel had to be standing by to tell us what we can't do or can do
Ah,
because
yeah.
obviously a lot of our suggestions would maybe break the coding behind the game.
Ah, cool, cool. So, what kind of suggestions did you give them, and what could you give us an example of something you were discussing, talking about?
Yeah. So one of the things we wanted to do was we noticed that a lot of players were combining block mechanics and dodge mechanics.
Mm.
And this is obviously very powerful because it's relatively easy. We're talking about like just wearing a Parandus and specking into acrobatics.
Yeah.
So the investment required to get to achieve such a high chance to avoid taking no damage was way too easy.
Mm.
Um, and of course, I had heard that they were planning on nerfing block anyway because of how strong it was with Ziri. So one of the suggestions I made is, look, rather than try to tackle any balance changes or gems, why don't we just add the block reduction? What's it called? Block reduction
Yeah.
gem or whatever the full name is. I
Yeah.
said, can we add dodge on that? Ignoring your enemy's dodge.
Mm.
And at first they were hesitant. They're like, this might break their programming. But in the end, they did get that in. So that's just one of the ways we can do it is because the thing you have to understand is PvP cannot affect PvE.
Yeah.
So it really limits what we can and cannot do. But since we already had a PvP gem in the game, we thought, well, maybe we can add on to it.
Oh, definitely. That's really cool, man. That must have made you feel good as well. Feel like you contributed with something to Path of Exile. You can be proud of what you have achieved here, man. This is one of the reasons I have Greendude on this podcast because you don't get anyone who's more knowledgeable about this stuff. Just imagine that GGG actually inviting him over there. That's pretty cool. So, Greendude, what are you currently spending your time on in Path of Exile at the moment, and what's your goal with it, if you have any?
So of course I'm doing a lot of PvP.
Hmm.
There's events in two different leagues and for both low level and high level. So the
Hmm.
schedule for me trying to touch on every event is pretty hectic. So I'm spending a lot of time there instead of on Bloodlines where I originally was.
Yeah.
Um, on Bloodlines I have a cast on crit character that is just starting maps, but like I said, I'm spending so much time in PvP, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I'm up to right now.
Okay. So I asked you just before we started the podcast about the event that you did yesterday with Morse and Willie. Could you tell us quickly about that? Because you did pretty well, right?
Yeah, so we never really touched on high level PvP.
Hmm.
It's not something that I feel is very accessible to me personally because I've always thought it would be really expensive, and
Hmm.
I'm not really a smart player when it comes to like getting rich fast. I'm not
Hmm.
one of those guys, so I thought it wasn't for me. But I figured I might as well throw it together in 30 minutes a PvE character, like switch it up to PvP
Yeah.
and see what happens just to get points. And then we realized, wait a second, we can, like basically the teams like 3v3, 2v2, 6v6. What happens is instead of like anytime there's imbalance, it kind of balances out because in teams it's more about it stresses teamwork, it stresses your positioning, it
Hmm.
stresses things that are not gear.
Yeah.
And we found that out to be, extremely awesome. Like we found that our team is able to compete for a demi, even though originally we're just PvE characters, and we had never done high level PvP. So it was pleasantly surprising to see, and we ended up taking one home, so we got the demi.
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. One of the sentences I heard when I was watching the stream yesterday, Willie's stream, was that I'm being flanked or I'm gonna flank him and that kind of stuff. So the whole
Hmm.
positioning thing is definitely a big part of the 3-on-3 and 6-on-6, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that of course adds a whole new, I don't know, element to the gameplay. So I've yet to try that myself, but it sounds and looks very interesting.
Yeah.
So I also want to talk to you or ask you, do you feel now that you've started high level dueling? Do you feel like it's true when people say that it is much more expensive than, for instance, gearing up a top tuned LLD character?
Yeah, so I think it's hard to deny that high level PvP is much more expensive than LLD. I
Okay.
think it's I think it's very simply because crafting LLD gear is very accessible now through
Hmm.
Elrion and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and the gear is farmable in normal, so you don't need a high level mepher to be doing maps to get some high level gear. However, I like to imagine high level PvP to be this, which is you have like racing and LLD to get into very quickly, but you still need practice and time.
Hmm.
And then high level PvP is kind of like what you do with your old characters that are now useless in hardcore or softcore.
Huh.
So if ever you've finally gotten level 100 or got yourself an Aegis or a Combs or whatever,
Hmm.
and now these characters are kind of useless in hardcore, right? So we finally have something to do with them. So I feel like it's just like kind of like an end game, turn your character in PvP and bash each other type of thing, which is
Okay.
just like an extra end game goal for people. It's definitely not accessible to new players though.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that. And there's also the thing about being level 100 to get the full benefit of it, of course.
Yeah.
And I've talked to you about this or mentioned this to you, but what would you think of the idea of having PvP tournaments where um, people would create a level 100 character and you would have, some kind of gear accessible to you, but everybody would have that same type of gear. And the same, of course, goes for LLD. Do you think that could work?
So one thing that I know from GGG, they're very hesitant to ever allow you to get a level 100, and
Hmm.
the reason for this is because and this is also why they don't do a single player game and why they don't let you do like a character editor or anything like that.
Hmm.
It's because they don't want you to know what it's like to be level 100 with the best gear and the best tree,
Hmm.
because once you experience that, you kind of lose the goal to get there. Um,
Definitely.
I remember playing Diablo 2 and then finding out that there is a character editor, and then you could take it on open ladder and
Yeah.
play people and just have literally the best gear.
Hmm.
And what I found out myself is that once you've experienced the best of the best, going back to your regular level 60 or something feels really wrong.
Hmm.
So I think they're hesitant to ever do that. Of course, in PvP, you're not, bashing monsters, so you're not getting the full experience of level 100, but it could be, in terms of balance, I think it would be an awesome idea.
Okay.
As to whether GG would do it, I'm not certain.
Okay. I can definitely see the point as well, and I think I would feel weird. I've never had a level 100 character, but I think I would feel weird about having my first level 100 character as a PvP character. I
Yeah.
would feel like I probably didn't deserve to have that kind of character. And definitely having a really gimped out character with the best gear and that kind of stuff. I think it's true that it would feel wrong to go back to a suboptimal character after that. So I kind of like what you're saying there. But of course, we'll have to see what they decide.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. Let's talk about the state of PvP or the meta at the moment. Are you happy with what 1.3 has brought so far? Are you satisfied?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're coming from like I guess you can call it like an underground community or like a very amateur thing where we have no support from GGG. We're just
Hmm.
making do with what we have.
Hmm.
And the balance was literally whatever. whatever the game, basically whatever PvE had to offer, right?
Yeah.
There was no PvP scaling except for like literally one or two gems. So, and the PvP kind of worked. Like the meta had to evolve around what we had. And now we're getting full support. We have events, points, alternate art. So in terms of that, like, how can anyone be not satisfied coming from PvP previously?
Oh yeah.
It's a huge step forward. However, can we do better? Absolutely. I think there's still a lot of balance that needs to be done.
Mm.
The guys in Alpha have were actually unable to play everything. We had like one event we could test. Obviously, we didn't all have each other's gear and stuff, so we couldn't fully test everything. But now that
Mm.
it's out in the open, we can see the true balance. And I think you can expect season 2 and season 3. And Chris told me personally that he said, "Look, I'm going to make it my goal to improve PvP season by season,
Yeah.
and I just hope people are enjoying it." But there's a lot of bugs and there's a lot of balance that we can fine tune. So like it only gets better. So if you're enjoying it now, you're gonna enjoy it more later.
Okay. Cool. What kind of when we talk balance, what do you feel like is the main issue at the moment? Is there something? Is it class or certain skills that's simply too powerful? Or
Yeah. So I'm like there's obviously a lot of bias sometimes in feedback, and it's
of
very
course.
hard to sort of separate yourself from your character, separate yourself from the meta, and just think about what's best for PvP.
Mm.
And if I do, I really feel like there are some builds that are at the very top. We're talking about still like puncture, tornado shot. Rangers have like a huge advantage about like
Yeah.
being able to put suppressing fire and being able to hit you multiple times before you get to them, etc.
Are we
And
talking high level dueling as well now? Or only low
no,
level?
no. Right now I'm talking about low level.
Okay.
I definitely don't consider myself an expert in high level.
Okay.
But so in low level, yeah. So the tornado shot, the puncture is still very powerful, and
Mm.
it seems like it takes little effort. Meaning, if you have a really good bow, you need to get a good bow. But
Mm.
after that, everything's kind of easy. And
Okay.
there's like a powerful unique called rear guard,
Oh yeah.
which literally by putting on rear guard, you have more armor and block chance than other characters as melees, but
Yeah.
you're a bow character, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's
It's insane. It's
yeah.
insane.
So I think there's still some fine tuning there. Two-handers are very strong with Cyclone. Face breakers are uh, almost overpowered, I'd say, in free for all arena.
Ah.
Um, like I'm okay with certain builds working better in certain modes. I think
Mm.
that's kind of cool if you can build around like free for all and then you make another character that's
Oh,
best
definitely.
for 1v1.
Yeah.
But still, if the experience is like, well, if you go into free for all and you're a new player and all you see is puncture and face breaker,
Uh,
then you still need to fine tune it for that game mode.
oh, definitely. Yeah. You don't want to feel like you're forcing people to play a specific build in order to be
Yeah,
competitive.
very good point.
So, do you feel like there's what's the whole thing caster versus attack? Is there caster viable top builds at the moment?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Freeze Pulse is very strong.
Hmm.
I'm being told that Firestorm stun is ridiculous
Okay.
if you're playing against someone who doesn't have stun immunity because apparently Firestorm plus the stun gem makes every fireball stun you reliably. And
Okay.
of course we're talking about like a skill that just fires like whatever amount of balls per second.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's Arc and Spark is probably the best, in my opinion, the best caster right now. It's such a solid build. It's tanky, does a ton of damage up close, up far. It does almost as much damage. And in
Mm.
free for all arena, you get the added bonus that Arc can chain, and you can have culling on it. So
Okay.
it's a very neat build. It's very well designed. Yeah, there's definitely caster builds.
Okay. So I've got to ask: is there any totem viable builds? I love totems.
So, well, in high level PvP, you can't use Spell Totem because it's a level 31 gem.
Of
So
course,
you
yeah.
so you're limited to Shockwave Totem
Shockwave.
and Searing Bond.
Yeah, that's true.
I have seen some Flame Blasters use Searing Bond, but I I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay, so it's gimmicky,
Yeah.
but okay. So, what have you thought about the the events so far, the contests or tournaments, and the matchmaking system as well. I would like to ask you about that. You feel like that's working optimally, or how do you feel about it?
Well, we have to know that like it started off pretty buggy.
Hmm.
There was certain events that people could simply not play. They would crash on loading,
Yeah,
or
including myself. I experienced
yeah,
that numerous times.
yeah, and that was kind of a sad time because it's little bugs that can be fixed. Except GGG was on a holiday at the time. It was just terrible timing, really,
Yeah.
with Christmas and stuff. So it took a while before it got fixed. Fortunately, a lot of the things are getting fixed now. I'm pretty sure most of the bugs like that have been worked out. And so I have to say, it looks really good.
Okay.
It is meant to queue you with people who are playing the same as you in that tournament.
Okay.
So if you queue up for 1v1 Blitz and the first 10 match you lose, you're probably going to start getting queued against people who also lost 10 match early on.
Okay.
So in that sense, I think it's really awesome that eventually you're going to reach a point where your wins and your losses are going to start evening out, and you're going to meet other people like you. So in that sense, it's such a huge step forward from what we used to be.
Okay.
Um,
And
but
it's
I'm
definitely motivating to have this kind of, at least for me, it is to have this kind of MMR system where you can see your rank going up. It's just you have something to aim for, and because of that, I also want to ask you, what do you feel about the incentive to play? Are you happy with the incentive to play PvP at the moment?
Yeah, I think that single-handedly the incentive can come from the alternate R gear simply.
Oh yeah,
So just
good
that
point.
alone, I think, is good incentive. So I think what people might find out is, hey, I want to do PvP only for alternate art. I don't like PvP. I'm a PvP hater, but I want the
Hmm.
alternate art. And then they get a character, and then they start doing PvP, and they're like, wait, this is actually kind of fun, right? Like I'm actually enjoying myself.
Hmm.
So it gives people an incentive to start playing, and then I think anyone who experiences PvP will take enjoyment out of it once you start taking it seriously.
Hmm.
I think there's good incentive, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Do you do you ever see people only playing Path of Exile for the PvP content? Do you think it's gonna? This is obviously an open question. That's something you can give a definitive answer to. But do you think the PvP will continue to develop, and eventually there'll be people only playing PvP in Path of Exile?
Yeah, there's a very small minority that already do.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, there's definitely people that came into the game wanting PvP, and like they've been doing it for like 3 years. And if there was no PvP in the game, they would leave simply.
Okay.
So I think there are that. I think it's a very small minority now, and I
Hmm.
think it'll stay a small minority. I don't think. Okay, so this is how I kind of sit on the issue, which is a lot of people will always say that PoE's PvP should be 100% fair, 100% skill,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
um, fundamentally that sounds perfect, and that sounds like the utopia we're looking for. Except what we're basically describing is like a game like Dota or League of Legends, a
Hmm.
MOBA style game.
Yeah.
And I always tell them like this is an RPG item grind game,
Hmm.
and GG doesn't want you to just start PvP from a new account. They want you to play the game, and then as you collect gear, you realize, hey man, I could throw a character together with this,
Oh.
and I could evolve it over time, and farm better items and do better. And that's just the sad reality that some people are not willing to accept. Um, it's not a MOBA game.
Yeah.
It's
It's like
something. It's a side
comparing.
project.
Yeah, it's like comparing it to something entirely different when
Yeah,
you're expecting that kind of balance in the game.
yeah,
I can definitely see that point. Um, I watched the tournament that you and Willie
yeah,
shoutcasted
yeah, yeah.
a few. How long ago was that actually?
That's a good question. It must have been. We did
It
we
was
did
at
two
the end
different.
of Invasion, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, you did a really good job with that. It was very entertaining to watch. Do you see yourself doing that again in the future?
Yeah, we'd like to do a teams tournament
Hmm.
relatively soon.
Okay.
We were kind of waiting for the new patch to come out so that
Hmm.
we get all the cool new balance and the support. You know, it's been kind of interesting to try to make a tournament work without any kind of support and using whatever tools we had in the game.
Mm.
Spectator mode was awful. If it at first it didn't even exist,
Yeah.
we had to kill our characters with
Yeah.
the just fire. So we made do, but now we're feeling more confident into to do another one. It's going to be even more awesome. Except the schedule has been so darn busy for PvP that
Yeah.
we can't see ourselves putting a tournament anywhere since people
Mm.
are always online doing PvP anyway.
Okay.
So we're hoping maybe during in between seasons or wherever we can fit a tournament in without
Yeah.
clashing with GGG.
And I definitely think that tournaments like that with shoutcasters, commentators, it is so healthy for the development of any kind of game. You know, StarCraft would not be where it was unless if it didn't have the shoutcasters, and the same goes for some of the MOBAs. And
Yeah.
for PvP and Path of Exile, it can only improve the game with you guys doing that kind of stuff. And once again, it
Yeah.
was really entertaining to watch. I loved watching it on my second monitor while I was grinding some mobs. It
Yeah.
was really cool, and it gave me some insight to PvP as well. The thing that's really cool about shoutcasting and that kind of stuff is that it teaches you stuff,
Oh yeah.
and I suppose you guys had fun doing it as well.
Yeah, we had a ton of fun, and we it was our like we watch a lot of competitive streams, so we hear
Mm,
the shoutcasters all the time.
yeah,
So we kind of learn from just hearing, but
yeah.
we didn't expect us to be, good at it anyway. And then the feedback we got afterwards was so overwhelming that we thought, wow, this is actually great because we had fun, and then people
Mm,
liked it. So that was great. And I know that there's a new of course Path of Exile channel on Twitch,
mm.
and they're planning on doing some pretty cool tournament stuff. You might just see some shoutcasters on their official channel soon.
Okay,
Uh,
very
you know,
interesting.
Nothing concrete yet, but you might just see us again.
All right, we'll keep an eye out for that. I should also probably say, guys, if you haven't clicked the follow button on the official Path of Exile Twitch channel, you should probably go do that because as Greendude says, there's going to be some interesting things coming up in the near future. So I want to ask you again. Let's go back to builds. So for anybody who's like a new player to or new to PvPing, who would or what kind of build would you suggest a player should check out? What's the easiest to get into?
Yeah, so there's a lot of there's starting to be a lot of guides available
Hmm.
around, and so anytime you find a guide, I just recommend using it simply.
Okay.
The but if I were to recommend one build that I always go to, it's very inexpensive. It's also very good for new leagues. Like PvP Season 2 will be in Torment and Bloodlines. So I think that starting from scratch there, you might see a lot of dual daggers. You can wear double ungles and do a ton of damage. And by removing the fact that you have to farm for a weapon
Hmm.
because you're using a unique, it makes it so much easier. You see, like rings and gloves and all that are relatively easy to find and relatively easy to make, but weapons are usually a bit more difficult. So by using a dual ungle build,
Hmm.
you're removing that out of the equation. It's very cheap. It's very like I said, it can be pushed to the point where you can almost one shot players, if not
Okay.
one shot them. So it's
Do
very
you, st-
potent.
do you still feel it's viable after the nerf to block in patch 1.3?
Yeah, because I feel like everyone else lost block, no
Hmm.
matter
Good
what
point.
build you are. And like the Crest of Brandis shields in Bloodlines and Torment are also not only did they get their base reduced, but they also got nerfed at the explicit. So
Hmm.
you're gonna see shields in Bloodlines and Torment do even less block than in hardcore and softcore. So
Okay.
um, yeah, I do feel like they'll be fine.
So for a beginner, you would recommend doing some kind of dual ungles. What kind of skills would be optimal for a dual ungle setup?
So you want your dual strike with quality because it gives a lot of crit chance,
Hmm.
and with dual ungles you're getting a ton of crit. You want to try to get some rare diamond rings if possible. If not, that's okay.
Okay.
For your amulet, there's this cool new amulet called Maligaro's
Ah,
something
yeah.
something, which is
Lots
I
of
don't know.
crits.
Yeah, lots of crit, reducing a bit of your crit multi, but
Hmm.
you should have the crit multi gem in the setup.
Yeah.
You should have weapon alley, and you should be using, of course, a linked whirling blades to move around. That's the added bonus of using daggers, is you get that awesome skill.
Definitely. So, do you use whirling blades as an attack as well, or is it only to? Uh,
Well, we used to use it as a an attack.
hmm.
Then it got nerfed by 30%. So it feels underwhelming. I still think it's possible to use it as a 5 link,
Yeah.
but and use your dual strike as a 4 link. But I think I'd probably switch it around now where I'd have my whirling as a 4 link,
Hmm.
and probably my dual strike as a 5 link, and add in maybe stun and block pin and all that kind of thing, you know?
Okay. Yeah, but I've been playing around with whirling blades as a main attack, and it definitely feels lackluster compared to
Yeah,
the other ones at the moment.
yeah.
So I think I'll be speccing into dual strike as well.
Mm.
So let me ask you, or would you mind explaining the current build that you are doing for your LLD character?
Yeah, so at the start of the season, I tried flat Ellie Dagger Templar. So
Hmm.
instead of using skills like Molten Strike or Static Strike that convert Fizz to Ellie, I tried to just stack Ellie, meaning Wake of Destruction, Prism Weave, um, any kind of Ellie on gear, Ellie on dagger, like a triple Ellie dagger I had.
Hmm.
And it turned out okay. I was doing fine in tournaments, like I could reach top 10. I was consistently top 20, but I didn't feel as potent as I thought. And then I switched over to back to my Facebreaker that was like, I think his if you do slash age in the game, he's like 750 days old or something.
Hmm.
So dusted him
It's
off.
insane.
Yeah, dusted him off. Threw on some trigger gems and some new gear that I had acquired,
Yeah,
and he turned out awesome, and got me at least one win in free for all, and I'm consistently top 5 with it. So
pretty sweet, man.
yeah.
What's your thought about the new trigger gems when it comes to?
So one thing, well, okay, so they all function slightly differently, but
Hmm.
essentially, two of them go off of your block, and one of them go off of just 30% or 40% RNG.
Yeah.
So they're very RNG based. So sometimes they won't do anything for you, and sometimes they'll do everything for you. And since you can wear all three of them, and link the fourth gem as added fire or life gain on hit or something, or even
Hmm.
blind,
Hmm.
you're getting a lot of use out of them but you're trading a 4 link, which I feel like the trade is rather too easy. I think being able to have all three gems for just a 4 link is very strong. Their damage is ridiculous. When I thought about trigger gems, I thought, oh, maybe they'll do 1/3 of your damage or maybe 50% of your damage,
Yeah.
but some of them go wild, like 76%. I think one of them goes even higher than that.
Yeah.
So I think their damage needs to be tuned. Um, the other option could be that if you're using one of them, the others don't work. But I feel like that would hurt a bit of diversity because it's kind of cool to have three trigger gems that might blind you or a life gain on hit. Like there's a lot of utility with them. So
Hmm.
I think to just bring them to a point where people stop talking about it with the word OP,
Oh
they
yeah.
might just nerf the damage. I think would probably be fine, or the proc rate.
People have a tendency to abuse the word OP.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not healthy. You should
Yeah.
not do that, guys. If you're watching this, using that word all the time is not healthy for the game.
Yeah.
um, so I also kind of want to ask you. This is more like a fun question, but who do you consider the top 5 best LLD players at the moment, if you can say so, and why?
Um. So
Besides
okay.
yourself, of course.
I'm not. I don't play a lot of softcore PvP,
Hmm,
so unfortunately, I'm gonna have to just say the hardcore ones because I don't want to
that's fine.
insult anyone in softcore.
Of course.
Um, but yeah, for hardcore, there's definitely Lord Sidjo's doing bow, tornado shock puncture, and
Hmm,
obviously that's very successful, and he's got really insane gear.
hmm,
Um, I think you have Johnny Annihilation, who's doing, or what's his account? Yeah, Johnny Annihilation. He's
hmm.
doing Cyclone,
Okay.
and his two-hand axe Cyclone is just absolutely destructive. It's very, very strong.
What is it that it makes it so? Why is it so strong?
Well, you get much more damage than a one-hander. So,
Hmm. And
um,
range, I suppose.
yeah. And one thing that's really cool is with Cyclone, Cyclone's very important to sort of not stack AoE, but like stack weapon range.
Hmm.
So, and a two-hand axe is like the highest weapon range you can get.
Yeah.
So, it's very useful because, you know, sometimes in PvP, there can still be desync just like in PvE, or just, you know, a mistake where the player actually is or anything like that. And having weapon range will be really forgiving.
Hmm.
So,
Good point.
very good build there. You know, you got all your main guys like Grindcore and Midwest that play similar builds as you do, I think, in softcore,
Yeah.
which is, you know, the dagger with a shield and, you know, lots of crit, lots of flickering and whirling.
Yeah. I don't
Uh,
like meeting him in game. He seriously he wrecks me.
yeah,
There's
yeah, he
nothing I
plays
can do.
softcore now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um.
yeah, and just to I guess I just give a shout out to a few softcore names I know, which is
Hmm.
Findle does two-hander.
Yeah.
I know you know, Vaystar does PvP, I think, or does free spalls rather.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know the softcore guys off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of
The
good
worst
players.
thing about a question like this is that you're always afraid of forgetting to
Forgetting
mention
someone,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
forgetting the most obvious person. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So do you feel like the ladder list? Do you feel like it reflects the talent and I guess skill of the players at the moment?
Sort of. There is a problem. Well, a problem. It's just the system is Glico, which is very similar to Elo. A lot of people know Elo
Hmm.
from chess or from StarCraft or whatever.
Yeah.
So you know, just a matchmaking rating system essentially,
Hmm.
to dumb it down. And the problem with those is you have to have a decay or a you know, degeneration or whatever the term,
Yeah.
where your rank starts going down over time if you don't play. And
Yeah.
that's very important because what happened here is those who were very dedicated with PvP skipped out on the bloodlines and torment start,
Hmm.
and they went straight to the matchmaking, or yeah, the matchmaking in town there, and they started farming each other for points. And then someone came, you know, clear top winner, and then they stopped playing because
Hmm.
if you start losing, you lose your rank.
Yeah.
And right now there is no decay system, so I
Okay.
think it's very inaccurate right now, unfortunately.
That's a good point. It definitely needs to have that kind of DK system in order for the ladder to be healthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the people who have a late start, they can
Yeah.
play people because now there's no one queuing purposely, you know.
Hmm. Good point. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about.
But the decay
Um.
system is coming, I should say. It's
Okay.
yeah.
That's good to know. Um. How do what has been like your most epic PvP events or um, you know what has been the most epic experience you've had so far in PvP?
It's actually two recent experiences I think are the best.
Okay.
So one of them is in LLD. I played in a tournament, a Swiss tournament against Fightgar, who plays like
Hmm.
a one-hander shield character, and he's got a lot of block and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, um, if Fightguard comes to me up close, I'll destroy him with face breakers. That's
Hmm.
just how it is for that matchup.
Yeah.
So he's smarter than that. And he knows he can fight me as well. You know, he knows he can do a lot of damage to me, but I
Yeah.
do it faster. So he and you know, he's such a clever player. He would come by me, use Enduring Pride to get an endurance charge,
Yeah.
and then leap slam away. And he kept doing that and doing that until he had enough. And then he'd pop Immortal Call and hit me for about 2 seconds, maybe 3 seconds
Yeah.
of taking no damage, and then he'd run away again. And each time he would force me to use a flask,
uh,
and just wear me down. And you know, we went to like game 7, and it was so close. Uh, I was nervous the entire time. My hands were
yeah.
shaking. It was, but I did end up beating him. But he played such a good match. And I also want to just say this this other experience we had, which was in high level PvP. I want
Hmm.
to mention it because um, we like I said, I kind of threw a character together in 30 minutes,
Oh
and
yeah.
what I did is I just put on a tabula rasa and put arc and remote mine and you know all that jazz.
Hmm.
And so me and Willie and Hellman at the time, we enter like our second match or whatever, and I placed down 7 remote mines. And when my team was like, you know, detonate it, I detonate it, and I get triple kill because the arc chained from all the players. and we just went ecstatic. We just were screaming like triple kill, and
Nice.
it was awesome. Yeah.
That is pretty badass. And I guess that's what these hectic PvP experiences can contribute with. You don't know what to expect in PvP, and that leaves us with those kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, pretty cool. So, lastly, Greendude, where do you, and we've touched briefly upon this, but where do you see, or how do you see the future for PvP in Path of Exile? What is in your foreseeings?
So as I mentioned, I hope that soon we can get some pretty much weekly official streams on Path of Exile's Twitch. Um, I don't want to give like any kind of date or anything because it's very much a work in progress,
Yeah,
and there needs to be some kind of programming behind it. But you're gonna see some shoutcasting almost weekly.
awesome.
You're gonna see live events is gonna be sick. I think
Mm,
it'll also get a lot more people involved.
definitely.
Um, you're gonna see additional events. I'm hopeful for 2v2s to come out.
Mm,
Um, so there's other events that I think they want to do in the future. I don't know when that is, and just the overall improvement of balance is going to be fantastic. I think season 2 is going to be like, if season 1 blew your mind coming from PvP before, I think
yeah.
season 2 is going to be even more extraordinary. So, just overall improvements would be fantastic.
Right. I'm definitely looking forward to that. If they can, I mean, with the things that they have already shown us that they can do for PvP, it's only gonna get better.
Yeah,
And, there's definitely, it seems like it, at least from my perspective, a huge commitment from GGG
yeah,
to make this fun.
yeah.
So, is there anything you would like to say or mention before we end the podcast, Grindu?
Well, obviously, I'd like to thank you for having me, and I think I like to also point out that because obviously the interview with me is talking a lot about me, and it's
Hmm.
very easy to forget about all the people who contributed to the PvP scene. And
Hmm.
so I just quick shout out to like everyone who helped me with the website. There's so many volunteer programmers that play PoE that just volunteered their help. There's for the website. There's people who have been PvPing when there was no one to PvP and
Yeah.
investing time and money, or currency rather, into their characters to play what they love. And even though there was no scene, and anyone who's made a guide, anyone who's helped someone else, thank you, because look at where we are now compared to before. So
Hmm.
thank you.
Definitely. And once again, guys, I would really suggest you check out Greendude's website, poearena.com. In there, you can find your guides, you can find helpful tips, you can ask questions from some really experienced players. You don't get any better PvP related information for Path of Exile. So go to the website, check it out. And Greendude, thank you so much for coming here, joining me today, talking about PvP. It's so nice to have an expert to be able to ask these questions. I would never be able to produce such satisfying answers on my own. So I'm really happy you decided to join up with me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, dude. All right, we're going to end the podcast here, guys. Thank you for watching. And bros, do you even nerd?